Juste a couple of statements en français. Les niveaux d'eau vont continuer d'augmenter dans le sud de la province. Les niveaux d'eau vont atteindre des niveaux historiques d'ici lundi. Les résidents des régions à risque doivent évacuer maintenant. Il est important de communiquer avec la Croix-Rouge canadienne et ils peuvent offrir de l'aide. Today, I had the opportunity, with the assistance of the Canadian Coast Guard, to tour the entire River Valley system. And I would characterize it as essentially seeing the worst of Mother Nature, but in many ways, the best of human nature. Because there's a considerable amount of people out there that are working extremely hard. And the citizens, the people impacted, are certainly pitching in, taking care of themselves and each other, despite the fact that water levels are continuing to rise steadily in the southern areas of the province. In many communities along the southern regions, water levels haven't yet reached the highest forecasted levels. So they are forecasted to continue to rise, and you'll hear more about hydrology in a few minutes. The residents in those regions, we're still telling them to exercise extreme caution, remain alert, over the next couple of days in particular. And anyone who isn't taking any precautions should be now seriously considering evacuating, because there is starting to be identified instances where people are literally running short of those critical things they need to remain resilient. We have a new factor in the game today, and that is wind. And wind is, of course, dramatic today. We have reports from meteorology that we have wind gusts somewhere in the range of 40, upwards of 70 in some locations. This is particularly significant in the Grand Lake region. As you can appreciate, boating becomes increasingly difficult as a consequence. So the winds are causing an impact on rescue and evacuation efforts, and storm surge effects that just add additional damage to property and possessions. Now, there's areas where there's still time for people to self-evacuate safely on their own over open roads. But they'll need to make that decision soon in many cases, because we continue to have road impacts and closures. These folks can get assistance from the Red Cross, and again, this has been well broadcast about how to access Red Cross resources. And we do want them to register with the Red Cross no matter what their destination is, even if they do have a place to go and they don't need assistance from the Red Cross. But we want these people in the Red Cross's database so that we don't have to direct responders to locations to check on people who are gone. And of course, it also assists when we're talking about de-energizing homes. Now, we have some particular areas of concern today. The community of Chipman in particular, and you'll get an update from Mr. Dasuki from DTI about the road issues regarding that community. Along Route 102, there's a couple of communities down there that are having difficulties as well. And there are some workarounds to this point in time for access and egress to those communities, but it is difficult. So we want people to be cautious driving, of course, and respect the closure signage and the public safety officials' directions. Now, one of the other things that come with all this wind is barricades literally getting blown down or blown away. So some signs that might have been blown away, of course, are being worked on being replaced and anchored. But people need to check not just the fact that there is or isn't a sign. If they're out and about traveling and they have any question or doubt, they need to check NB 511, and they need to be listening to public officials. This is all about marine operations for the most part. And we do have, as I said yesterday, assistance from the Canadian Coast Guard, as well as the Department of Fisheries and Oceans. and they bring some larger pieces of equipment and some much more capable watercraft, and they're of particular importance today when we have such choppy conditions out there. There's other craft in the waters as well. Cook Aquaculture is certainly helping out with a lot of their watercraft. And there is, in addition to rescue or evacuation ops, there's presence patrolling and security operations being conducted by these boats as well. You probably know this, but 2 boats are now devoted to assisting Darlings Island residents. When they're not involved in evacuations or providing support to emergency ops, they are assisting local residents to safely cross back and forth from the island as required. There was 40 crossings yesterday to that effect, and that'll continue to be provided as available in the coming days. We want to remind people that there's sandbags in the hundreds of thousands having been distributed, and literally millions of tons of sand, and there's many locations where people who require them can access them, and that information is being blasted far and wide at the regional level, the municipal level, and on various websites. Little statistic, 100 tons of sand and 350,000 sandbags, and the numbers continue to go up. This doesn't include private and corporate donations. So for a full updated list of locations where you can get sandbags, call the Emergency Measures Organization, 1-800-561-4034. We do have a rep in the room that's going to be speaking about NB Power issues. I'll simply say that outages are a concern, some because of de-energization, most today because of wind damage, but you'll hear more about that from NB Power. 724 NB Power customers have had their services disconnected due to flooding, 724. Reminder, when we do start getting back to the point where we're contemplating recovery and repairs, that folks' wells will be tested free of charge by the provincial government, and you'll get more information about that at EMO websites, specifically about recovery activities and services available. I mentioned at the beginning the worst of Mother Nature and the best of human nature, and I want to emphasize that. People are stepping up and doing the right thing. It's remarkable to see people whose daily lives do not involve emergency management quickly getting comfortable doing their part, contributing, and making a difference. And we continue to ask the citizens in the impacted areas to be patient. They have our absolute consideration. We do intend and will always, as a mission, want to ensure public safety and taking care of people, keeping them out of harm's way until it's safe to go home again. Without further, I will pass on to the next presenter, which is Jasmine Boisvert, Hydrology. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Today I will provide a brief update on our current 5-day forecasts. I would also like to encourage media outlets to remind the general public that these forecasts are updated every day and accessible around 1 p.m. on gnb.ca/Riverwatch website by clicking on the latest forecast links. Aujourd'hui, je vous fournirai une mise à jour des prévisions pour les 5 prochains jours. J'encourage les médias à rappeler à la population que ces prévisions sont mises à jour quotidiennement et sont disponibles à 13 heures sur le site du programme de surveillance des cours d'eau. Last night, we did have some precipitation that fell throughout most of the province. The amounts of actual rainfall were a little bit less than what was being predicted by Environment and Climate Change Canada, particularly in the north. The water level has been updated accordingly. The water level forecast, has been updated accordingly. Au nord de la province, seulement la communauté de Saint-Hilaire se trouve toujours au-dessus du niveau d'inondation. Ceci devrait changer au cours des prochains jours. En général, les prévisions indiquent que les niveaux d'eau baisseront lentement au cours des prochains jours. Cependant, il faut garder en tête que tout dépendra de la météo et la fonte de neige de jour à jour. Since yesterday, water levels in the lower St. John River Basin from Fredericton to St. John have continued to rise as forecasted. At the present time, according to the most current data, we are expecting that the flooding will continue for at least the next 5 days. À l'heure actuelle, les plus récentes données montrent que les inondations dans le bassin inférieur du fleuve Saint-Jean, de Fredericton à Saint-Jean, devraient se poursuivre pour au moins les 5 prochains jours. For these regions, our 5-day forecast indicates that for Fredericton and Majorville, water levels are predicted to remain relatively stable over the next 2 days and then possibly start to slowly decline. For Jemseg, water levels are expected to rise to about 6.8 meters from the current 6.6 meters and then start to decline around the 4th day. Similarly, for Grand Lake, water levels are predicted to reach 6.9 meters and then start to decline around the 4th day. Just a note on Grand Lake, as the director had mentioned, there's significant wind today, and so that 6.9 meters might be enhanced by wind action and wave action, and so that is something else to consider. In the Sheffield-Lakeville corner region, water levels are forecast to stay stable around 6.9 meters to 7 meters and start to decline on the 4th day as well. In Oak Point, water levels are forecasted to rise to 6 meters over the next 48 hours and then start to decline a few days later. And in Quispamsis, St. John area, water levels are forecast to rise to 5.8 meters over the next 2 to 3 days and then start to decline. These forecasts are subject to change depending on upcoming day-to-day weather. This includes any potential decline in water levels mentioned. 4 days is a long ways off, and a lot can change in the meantime. It's also important to note that once water levels start declining, flood waters will not disappear overnight. It will take several days or longer before water levels recede below flood stage, so please plan accordingly. Also, I would like to remind people to continue to monitor the Riverwatch website for the latest information as a new forecast is posted today, every day before 1 p.m. Je le rappelle encore que ces prévisions pourraient changer selon les conditions météorologiques de jour à jour. Ceci inclut les prévisions que les niveaux d'eau vont commencer à diminuer dans 4 jours, environ 4 jours. 4 jours, c'est encore très loin et beaucoup peut changer entre-temps. Donc, c'est important aussi de noter que lorsque les niveaux d'eau commencent à diminuer, les eaux d'inondation ne vont pas disparaître d'un jour à l'autre. Ça va prendre beaucoup de temps. Donc, s'il vous plaît, planifiez en conséquence. Je vous encourage à consulter le site web du programme de surveillance des cours d'eau pour les informations les plus récentes. Les nouvelles prévisions sont affichées chaque jour à environ 1 heure. Merci. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we will hear from Ahmed Dasuki from DTI on our current road conditions and related issues.
Thank you, Director. Thank you all. Trans-Canada Highway remains closed to through traffic from exit 306 at Ormocto to exit 423 at River Glade. That is expected to continue throughout the weekend and into the next week. Water is now up to the center line on both lanes, and today's high winds are causing some waves over the roadway. To reiterate, the detour that is in place, eastbound traffic headed towards Moncton, is being detoured to Route 7 at exit 306, then to Route 1, then back to Route 2 east of Moncton. Westbound traffic headed towards Fredericton is being detoured at exit 423 to Route 1, then to Route 7, then back to Route 2 west of Fredericton. We continue to make every attempt to communicate this closure to the public, and we appreciate the media's help in doing so thank you. I urge people to check mb511.ca for the latest up-to-date road closures. At 3 p.m. today, we will be closing Route 10 west of the bridge in Chipman due to water over the road. We are currently working with industry to bring a resource road to a standard that would enable emergency vehicles or some other vehicles to get in and out of the community. At last count, we are up to 140 assets affected by this flooding event. That number is fluctuating constantly, so mb511.ca remains your best source of information on road or lane closures. We know that many people have property they can't get to because of road closures, and we recognize how stressful that must be. But we continue to ask the residents to please respect the barricades and stay off flooded roads for your safety, and the safety of first responders who may have to rescue you. If there is a barricade up, it is because the road is not safe. Check nb511.ca for the latest road closures. Drive with caution in areas where water is over the road. Watch out for wildlife, and please do not stop in traffic to take photographs. The Gondola Point ferries remain in operation at this time. All other river ferries remain off service time due to high water levels. The coastal ferries are not affected. We thank the public for their continued patience and cooperation as we respond to this unprecedented flooding. Thank you.
Marie-André Bolduc from NB Power.
Thank you, Greg. Good afternoon. So we are currently experiencing widespread outages across the province due to high winds. These outages are not related to the flood. They are mainly caused by trees making contact with our infrastructure and down power lines. We have been redistributing our personnel and our crews to deal with both the floods and the outages caused by the wind. Right now, we're following our priority restoration protocols to address any immediate public safety issues related to either floods for emergency disconnects or to reconnect any kind of customers related to down power lines. So those are kind of our main areas of restoration protocols for now. We are encouraging customers to report their outages either by calling us at 1-800-663-6272 or as well on our website. Times of restorations will be updated on our website once we get a full picture of what's happening on the ground, once we've had a full assessment in the field. Right now, we're trying to redistribute our crews as much as possible. We've also made contact with the North Atlantic Mutual Assistance Group for contractors to come and lend a hand in the restoration efforts. So once we have a better idea, we will be able to generate some times of restoration on our website. So we know this is not ideal for our customers. We appreciate their patience, especially with customers that are dealing with a flood situation. We will try to do this as safely and as quickly as possible, of course. And we thank you for your patience and encourage customers to stay safe and at a safe distance from any down power lines. Alors en français, on a des pannes de courant un peu partout dans la province qui sont causées par les vents. Ces pannes ne sont pas reliées aux inondations qu'on voit un peu dans le sud de la province. Alors, on a divisé nos ressources un peu pour adresser les inondations, les débranchements d'urgence, ainsi que pour adresser des lignes qui auraient été mises par terre à cause des arbres qui auraient fait contact avec nos infrastructures. On va mettre nos temps de rétablissement sur notre site web une fois qu'on aura fait une évaluation complète sur le terrain. Les vents continuent, alors ça prouve être un défi pour les équipes. Nous comprenons que ce n'est pas une situation facile pour nos clients, surtout ceux qui font face aux inondations actuellement. Alors, nous avons fait appel à des partenaires dans d'autres juridictions pour qu'ils puissent venir nous aider aux efforts de rétablissement. Et on pourra mettre les temps de rétablissement sur notre site web dès qu'on aura une meilleure idée de ce qui se passe sur le terrain, une fois que le vent aura diminué un peu. Nous demandons aux clients de rapporter leur panne sur notre site web ou bien au téléphone au 1-800-663-6272. Et nous tenons à remercier nos clients. On comprend que ce n'est pas une situation facile, alors nous vous remercions de votre patience. Et s'il vous plaît, soyez en sécurité et restez loin des lignes qui seraient tombées par terre à cause des vents ou des branches qui auraient fait contact avec nos infrastructures. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Marie-André. Michael Kerr down in St. John at City EMO, please.
Thank you, Director, and thank you for the continued support from NBEMO and the province of New Brunswick down here in St. John. St. John EMO is warning that water levels are continuing to rise and are expected to continue to do so until at least Monday. Safety of our residents, members of St. John MO, and all responding agencies is our number one priority. Currently in St. John, the flood level is 5.5 meters, and we still expect it to be over 6 meters when we include the tidal information in the next coming days. Today, the high tide is at 4:40 p.m. As mentioned earlier, wave action from the wind is presenting a problem for some of our residents as well. Affected residents are being directed to contact Red Cross or go to the Carleton Community Center between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. for registration. As of this morning, we have 229 people in the St. John region that have registered with the Canadian Red Cross, and 22 are continuing to be accommodated through the Red Cross. We have 14 roads that are being monitored, and many of them are closed at this time. And we've also increased patrols from the St. John Police Force. Also, we have included Rothsay and Grand Bay Westfield in our flood mapping app to provide a larger scope of the latest road closures in the greater St. John area. Boat deployment, Cook Aquaculture and members of St. John EMO deployed 3 boats today from 2 different locations to assess the situation along the river and plan for any required emergency responses if it becomes necessary. Westfield Road, the road is open at this time. We continue to monitor water levels in that area with a focus on the section near Mellinger Crescent. Our engineers are working to determine whether the road can be built up so that we can keep it open for the residents. Projected water levels earlier this week would not have allowed for us to have sustainable construction in that area. But with the changing flood predictions, we are looking at that as a possibility. St. John Water, a clay berm was constructed around the Milledgeville wastewater treatment facility yesterday to protect the facility. And every effort is being made by St. John Water crews around the clock to ensure our drinking water and our sewer services are maintained to customers. Saying that, we have 10 wastewater lift stations that have been shut off, and equipment has been removed from those locations to reduce damages. The first reports of toilets not functioning have been received from residents in the Milledgeville area, and this could become more widespread as water levels rise and pump stations are taking offline. St. John Energy, as of this morning, have 39 customers that have been disconnected in the evacuation areas, but they continue to work with St. John EMO and provide house visits in the isolated areas. Train evacuation. Today, St. John Southern, or MB Southern Railroad is providing a free one-way evacuation shuttle service via rail today, departing at 5 p.m. to those along the Westfield Road, including everyone in the Morna Heights, Belmont, Ketipek, Accomack, and South Bay areas. MB Southern has guaranteed us that additional trips will be added as needed during the daylight hours. We continue to maintain, actually we've expanded our sandbed locations to 3. We have 2 west and we have 1 north, and that information can be found on our website. And we've had an overwhelming response from our volunteers and support. So we have many organizations around the city who have been generously offered support in a number of forms, whether it's to bag sand or support any required water evacuations. And we've seen a tremendous response from our community to support one another. And we ask people to continue to do so, what they can for their neighbors, friends, and family. We are keeping record of offers that come in and will reach out as the needs are identified. Again, I'd like to say, please go to www.stjohn.ca for the most current information on the flooding in St. John. That's all there is to report to this time, Director. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mike. Okay, that ends the formal presentations. I would remind people that obviously we have Mike Kerr from St. John on the line, and we also have represented in the room City of Fredericton and the Canadian Red Cross. Are there questions? Oui, Michel.
J'ai une question pour M. Boisvert. Si vous voulez vous avancer au micro, M. Boisvert, s'il vous plaît. Vous parlez de 4 jours avant que ça commence à diminuer. J'aimerais peut-être juste préciser, est-ce que c'est 4 jours partout, même à Saint-Jean? Parce que Saint-Jean, le pic va être lundi, j'ai compris. Alors, et donc 4 jours avant que ça commence à diminuer. Et combien de temps avant qu'on revienne à la normale? Est-ce qu'on peut prédire ça aussi?
Donc, on dit 4 jours à Saint-Jean. Dans le fond, on va arriver au pic vers ces 4 jours, 3-4 jours. Donc, le pic va peut-être durer quelques jours et là, on va commencer à diminuer. Donc, ça va rester stable typiquement pour, autant stable que ça peut avec les marées, là, mais ça va rester à ce niveau-là probablement pour une journée ou deux au moins. Et là, ça va commencer à diminuer. Mais ça va prendre beaucoup de temps avant que ça soit complètement, disons, de retour à normal. Donc, pour dire comment exactement la journée que ça va prendre, on peut pas vraiment le dire.
Donc, on ne peut pas savoir sur Riverside Drive, par exemple, dans combien de temps les gens pourront aller chez eux.
Non.
Et je voulais savoir pour Marie-André Bolduc, s'il vous plaît, combien de pannes de courant au total dans la province? Je n'ai pas entendu tout à l'heure, peut-être que je l'ai manqué.
Je ne l'ai pas dit parce que les chiffres fluctuent un peu. La dernière fois que j'ai vérifié, on était à 23 000 clients un peu partout à travers la province. Dans
23 000?
les régions, oui, dans les régions un peu partout, comme j'ai dit, Moncton, Dieppe, Riverview, le comté de Kings, Madawaska, Shediac. Alors, c'est vraiment répandu un peu partout à travers la province.
Est-ce que vous avez eu des pannes de courant en région inondée aussi?
Ben, c'est encore une fois, c'est un peu.
Qui sont pas liés au débranchement volontaire voulu, là, qui sont des pannes de courant dues aux poteaux qui seraient tombés à cause du vent.
C'est comme j'ai dit, dans les régions de Fredericton, on a eu un impact plus tôt ce matin. Les équipes sont sur le terrain autant que possible dans les mesures, dans les zones sinistrées. C'est certain que ça prouve un peu plus un défi pour les équipes, mais on travaille avec les autorités locaux et aux barricades et tout ça pour avoir accès autant que possible, mais tout en respectant la sécurité publique. Alors, les pannes sont vraiment répandues un peu partout à travers la province.
Are there other questions? Yes.
For EMO, my first one, I understand Chittenden, now that we're kind of going to be closed, will be is it the only area in the province that will be completely without access? Because all the roads are closed, that you know of?
I would not say the only one. There are smaller rural areas where roads are cut off. But I hasten to add that, that is the purpose behind the boat operations. And there's contingency planning ongoing right now to ensure assistance for the community of Chipman. There are emergency first responders in the community, and there are methods of ensuring the provision, whatever is required, to ensure that the emergency response capacity continues to exist there.
My second question is, it's my understanding that there's been a memo put out to other departments of the government on behalf of EMO asking for relief as fatigue sets in for EMO staff. That's been confirmed to me. What can you say about that?
Okay, that is not unusual. In fact, it's quite common because the NBEMO organization is augmented with a number of different government departments on an as-needed basis. And as a matter of routine, and as you would expect, available folks that work for the province can be repurposed to come over and assist us during these times when we have to sustain an operation 24/7 for an indefinite period. So that is quite common. And you may also have heard or have seen that a lot of information is being passed out about people who want to volunteer, just members of the public. And my only message to them would be that we don't want to be overwhelmed with volunteers. So if they self-identify to their municipality, or if they know of and go to a site where their labor would be of assistance in sandbagging or whatever it might be, then that's a good place for those folks to go. But people need to do that gut check and find out what kind of volunteering they're really capable of doing, and ensure they equip themselves appropriately before they can expect to be employed. Any other questions? Just a couple of final comments then. The one thing that's been brought to my attention on more than one occasion is that people are evacuating and either don't know or don't think to include their pets in some cases. These evacuation operations that are going on, whether they're by boat or whatever facilitated means are necessary, we're prepared and quite willing and certainly want to encourage people to leave no one behind. And that includes your pets. Arrangements have been made, and there are several agencies in support of the Red Cross that can shelter and care for pets for the duration of this. So that should not be, as you've heard before, a barrier towards anyone making a decision about evacuating. And based on an overflight today and a look around, if people have stayed in their homes, they're hardy souls, but they're going to find, at least in the southern regions, that their challenge is not going to go away for some time. And sometimes you've got to make the right call here to consider what's truly important, and that is your safety and security of you and your family. And that's why we're continuing to encourage evacuations. If there are no other questions, thank you all very much. And I'm sure we'll be doing an update just like this tomorrow. Thank you for your patience and your cooperation communicating to our public. Cheers.